Welcome back. Episode 2 of the Practice Players Podcast. As always, I'm Dave.
I'm Dan.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Tyler.
We got our special guest today, man. Happy to have him on. So this is episode 2, our first real guest. Last episode was the pilot episode. And I'm very happy to have this man on. So I'm not going to hog up too much time. I'm just going to let Tyler take over here and explain his journey for those of you who don't know him.
What's up, everybody? As Dave said, I'm Tyler Hicks. I'm now a graduate assistant at Illinois State for the men's basketball program. Dave told me I'd have to explain my journey, and I think that makes you think about where it really started. And I think the generic answer for me would maybe say it started at Ohio State, but I was really thinking back, and for me, it really started in basketball, in a basketball sense. I think growing up a big Butler fan, my grandpa was a professor at Butler, and I grew up going to games with my dad and grandpa from a young age. And it was my favorite part of every week. Like it was just a blast. And I kind of fell in love with basketball and Butler growing up, watching Brad Stevens. That was just kind of a lucky coincidence in my life that he was there through the years I grew up and seeing them make 2 Final Fours. And eventually I kind of started my own Twitter page that tweeted about Butler basketball and got involved on the fan sites and all that jazz. And in 7th grade, one of the Butler websites asked me to be a writer for them. And I did that for 5 or 6 years for a couple different websites. And through that, I actually got to know some of the Butler coaches. They were very gracious, and I was covering recruiting. It was kind of funny. I was this 15 or 16-year-old kid trying to outwork the local newspaper for Butler basketball scoops, and sometimes I got them, which was always a good feeling. But long story short, I actually got to know Coach Peden, who I work for now, first when I was 16 and doing that. And then Coach Mike Schrage, who's now at Duke, but he was really the one that invited me to be a manager at Ohio State. Eventually got to know him well through doing that. I was a student assistant in high school for my basketball team my juniors and senior year. Grateful for my high school coach, Michael Wantz, who gave me a lot of responsibility in high school to be involved and be around coaching in that sense. And then, like I said, I kind of grew up thinking I'd go to Butler and be a manager. Like that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then in June or July before my senior year of high school, the night before I actually took the ACT, Chris Holtman took the job at Ohio State, which really kind of flipped my world upside down because I'd gotten to know basically that whole staff pretty well and had my life really locked in a way. And then he announced he was going to Ohio State, and I was like, it made me take a step back. And Coach Schrage was awesome during that time because I think he knew I was a stressed 17-year-old. And he called me that night and was like, hey, like, be patient. We'll invite you over to Ohio State and see how you like it. If you don't, no pressure, but the door's always open for you. And they were just super awesome. In September, I went over there and they had me out for a football game. And then I went back in the fall for a basketball game. And I quickly fell in love with Ohio State. I never really foresaw myself going there until then, but it all kind of fell into place. And I was really fortunate to be a manager there for 4 years, work with some phenomenal people, and learn so much. And then this spring I graduated, and one of our assistant coaches, Ryan Peden, got the head coaching job at Illinois State and brought a few of us along for the ride. So I'm a GA here now, really enjoying it, learning a lot. So it's been good. That's a little bit about my journey.
I like that. I didn't know you got the unofficial and official manager visit. That might be historic, first of its kind.
They rolled out way too much of a red carpet for me, I'll tell you that much. It was cool. I was wide-eyed. like November of my high school year, I'm sitting in the front row of an Ohio State football game, and I tell you what, that was crazy.
That's awesome.
So I wanted to ask you, obviously we got a couple questions for you. What do you think is the biggest change going from, working with Ohio State, going from Big Ten basketball to the Missouri Valley basketball? Obviously, like besides like budgeting and stuff like that.
Yeah, the budget's the big one. Yeah, definitely is. It's different. You got everything you want at a school like Ohio State or Oregon, and you do have to be a little more budget conscious. But I think the leagues are similar in a lot of ways. Style of play, I think they're pretty similar. So that's less of an adjustment in terms of how you coach that. I think a difference that stands out to me is the size of the staff, which comes with budget, but that is a substantial difference. I'm grateful to be at this level because we basically are operating with 6 staff members. I was doing the math last night at Ohio State. We had 11 or 12 plus a nutritionist who I'd count, and then Joe Gimma, David Aaron, Urban Majors, video guys, photography, graphics. I'd count them. That's 14. So we're half the size, and I think that's pretty consistent across the board in our conference. That's all stuff our staff does. Like one of our 6, our other GAs doing most of those photography edits and jersey swaps. So there's just so much more work that you're exposed to, which I think is what you want in my position because you get to learn so much. I think generally at this level, I'd say you're exposed to your athletic department way more. I work with our deputy AD, like our number 2 in charge, almost every day on something or another, which I would never have at Ohio State. I work with our AD on a halfway regular basis, or at least interact with him. Like that would never happen at Ohio State. So the responsibility you're able to have is definitely at a higher level, and it's kind of because it's required. Like if it's going to get done, there's no other option. But when you're in this position, I think that's what you want because you're able to learn so much more.
No, that's awesome. When you said the AD thing, I was just thinking, just casually to hit up Gene Smith.
Yeah.
Like, what's up, Gene? You want to help me take care of this?
Yeah, it's a little different there. That department is so big, and it's a heck of a department. So many amazing people, but it's all hands on deck here for everything. I think I've got a meeting at 11 with our deputy AD head coach and our chief of staff and our director of development for the athletic department about raising money for our program. Like that meeting never happens at Ohio State for me. I'm never in that meeting, and now I'm a part of it. So that's just a big difference, I think.
It's awesome.
Tyler, I have a question for you. As a manager myself, for you going from a manager to a GA, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give yourself a few months ago that you know now?
Yeah, I really do think I'd tell myself just don't wish it away. Like, you really have to enjoy where you're at. There's nothing like being a manager and being a college student. And that work none of this work is life or death, or the end all be all. I think I would tell myself to enjoy college for what it is because you can't get those days back with your best friends, with your manager brothers. Like those are the best days. I loved being in college at Ohio State. I loved being a manager there. But the GA life and as you move up, I think it's maybe harder work than you initially expect. Like every day isn't easy. They're long days. That time will come to where you can really, really grind. And it's not to say being a manager isn't a grind. It definitely is with all the responsibilities you have inside and outside of basketball. But I think you do just really want to soak it in because it's not like that forever. But it is. It's the good old days, in my opinion. So enjoy it for what it is.
That was a great input. I don't know why Nick was nodding down there. He knows he's not part of that gritty life. He's Hollywood. I don't know. He was nodding his
No.
head like he knows what that's about, man.
No, I talk to our managers, man. They do the same thing. Like, we have conversations too.
You don't Hollywood them, you don't big time them.
No, definitely not.
You
Definitely
don't.
not. I'm
just
not
feel
the
like, yo,
one
give me a
to.
ball.
No, I'm not the one to bring me my water. I'm asking if they need water, if anything else.
But if Dan and I were there, I feel like you'd be probably more nasty to us, but then like nice to everyone else.
Yeah, but that's, you know what I mean. I would do it to you when we're just at a restaurant. Dave, give me a water. Just give you a hard time.
You're gonna please. But anyways, back to Hicks. We can make fun of you later. Hicks, I just wanted to open up the floor before we bombard you with more ones. I mean, we know each other pretty well just from our year at Ohio State and our continued friendship after that. But is there anything that you want to ask Nick or Dan, Pac-12 Mountain West perspective or anything?
I do want to ask, between Nick and Dave, who has the better facial hair? Like, what's the consensus on that?
It's a pretty obvious answer. I mean,
It depends on what you're going for. If you're going for like the caveman, like Liver King look, then you want Nick. But if you want the sleek, like Tony Stark goatee, for those of you who are watching or listening on Apple Podcasts, not YouTube, I'm rocking the Tony Stark Iron Man 1 goatee, and Nick's rocking, if you know, like Liver King, viral sensation.
it's not that defined. I don't want the people listening to think that I just have a massive beard. It's really not.
Let them think that, because you kind of do.
No, I have like this portrayal between those two that like I have like a werewolf look. Like I clean it up like pretty decently nice. Like it's definitely up in the air for what who has the best though.
Dave's out here comparing you to Liver King.
Yeah, like Liver King is like, nah, man. It is what it is.
We're going from college basketball to beards, and I honestly love it. Yeah, that's a great question. Nick, I think you have another one.
Oh yeah. So for the viewers as well, like I'm sure we all want to know, like, where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a hard question. I think I've developed a perspective over time that I'm not a huge proponent for myself of these long-term goals or plans. And I think that has come just from seeing that life is very fickle and plans change so fast. And so I really do try to focus on a smaller scale, kind of day by day, week by week, and let that take me where it takes me. I think otherwise I personally get a little overwhelmed by it all. Even looking to, where am I going after I'm a GA? That can get really overwhelming because the reality is you really don't know. And there's some beauty in that, I think. But I mean, 10 years ago, I was a seventh grader, and I didn't know my left hand from my right hand. I don't think. I was telling a story last night before our game. I gave our pregame talk to our donors in kind of our donor room, and it's like 8 years ago. I was in a similar room at Butler, listening to Coach Peden give that same talk as an assistant coach. And now I work for him at Illinois State, of all places. So, like, the way life goes is so unpredictable. I think in 10 years, I hope to have a wife and a family that I care for, and professionally, it'll go where it goes, and hopefully make the most of it and impact people positively. But I do think I try to focus on a smaller scale and just win each day for what it brings and focus on that.
Amen. I love that answer. And then one thing I did want to ask you, I know it'll be beneficial for me, Dan, even Nick, because I know all three of us would like to GA. What would you recommend just as a whole, whether it be going from player to GA or manager to GA? What's like the biggest piece of advice that you would give someone when they're searching for that role?
Yeah, I'd say right now it's just be your best every day, because the people you're around right now are the people that are going to get you those spots. And I've seen that kind of time and time again, to where even if one of your assistants doesn't get a head coaching job, it's somebody they know or somebody your head coach knows that's looking, or they make a call for you and it kind of happens like that, I think that's the wide majority, rather than applying the old-fashioned way, because people want to hire who they know. And I know our boss has said that a million times. Our whole staff pretty much he knew before. He brought 4 of us over from Ohio State, 3 managers, that 2 others I worked with for at least 3 years. So I think it is, again, like it's a short-term thing of really embracing where you're at. When the time comes, make your plans and your desires known to the people that can help you. Don't be shy about that. I think at the end of the season, like, have those conversations with those coaches that, hey, if you see or hear anybody looking, I'm interested and I want to pursue that. And then they'll take it from there. And if you go on Hoop Dirt, apply the old-fashioned way by all means. With some, one of our good buddies, Luke, got it that way at Austin P and got his spot that way. But I would say the majority happens through connection. And I'll tell you, being a GA now, like, you're always looking at managers and players too, kind of judging how you would on if you could see them moving up and who you would hire on your staff or as a GA, or who you'd recommend. And like, I never really thought about that as a manager, but now as a GA, I'm thinking about that. Like, that's kind of how I judge our managers, to be honest, is like, what I want to work alongside them as a GA. And so I think be somebody that other people want to work with and want to work alongside. I think that comes with working hard and doing your job.
Yeah. And then just to elaborate on that a little bit more, it might be beneficial to even one person listening. So that would make all the difference. What was that website you were talking about that Luke got his GA job through?
Yeah, it's called hoopdirt.com. They've got a job board that a lot of stuff goes on for men's basketball. It's a good source to check on, especially during that off season. You'll see a lot of GA spots and Dobo spots in there. Some of it's a formality, but some of it is really open listings, especially for those GA spots. So I think if you are having to look just cold turkey, I think that's a good spot to look.
It's awesome. But Nick, Dan, Tyler, anyone have any final questions or thoughts they want to get out there before we get to our closing segment?
All good.
So we like to close off every episode with what we call the storyline of the week. So we'll probably have one or two of the hosts go around. This week, I believe it's Dan and Nick. Say just something cool, interesting, whether it be a player's stat line, a team that's hot, or just random news or rumors from around the college basketball world, and say their thoughts on it for a minute or two. And then we like to get our guests. So we'll have Tyler end us off with his storyline of the week. So Nick or Dan, you want to start us off?
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, so I know this applies a lot to Nick because he is in the Mountain West Conference, but a 4-7 Weber State went to Logan, Utah, and beat a 9-0 Utah State, which I believe knocked off the 6th remaining undefeated team in the country. Which, I mean, it's obviously not only important for Nick, but I mean, it's important for college basketball and the plan of, like, these teams can win these buy-in games and ruin an opportunity for Utah State to go undefeated out of conference. That's a big win for Weber State, a team in the Big Sky that we really don't know how well they'll compete in that conference. So I think it's cool, to kind of see those type of wins and how that, propels a team like Weber State when they're in a smaller conference, but how you also look at it like Utah State and Nick at UNLV, you look at that and you go, well, okay, this is drawing bad momentum for the Aggies who UNLV gets to play twice, so I thought that this was a pretty interesting storyline, especially considering Weber State was down 14.5 on the road at Utah State and came back and won. Because I know we played at Utah State last year, and that was a tough game. They have a really good crowd, so that's a big-time win for Weber State.
Yeah, I wanted to bring in, obviously you just talked about the Mountain West. I'm going to bring in the Pac-12 a little bit. UCLA I'm going to say it, they probably look like the hottest team in college basketball right now. Just going to Maryland and just beating them by 27 is ridiculous. And then beating Kentucky at MSG, those are two big time wins.
Like that, Tyler, you got storyline of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the lines of self-promotion here with my own team. Saw the stat last night. How about this? Our Barstool school account tweeted this stat out, which they must be doing their research because it's a good stat. Last 7 games, our team has had 7 different leading scorers, which find me another team in the country that's done that. You probably can't. I don't know if that's a hugely positive thing or not. I just thought it was pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever been around that to where, maybe a team with 7 different leading scorers over the course of a year. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Even that would be pretty tough. But for us, it's happened in 7 consecutive games, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't know too many times that's happened. 7 consecutive games is pretty crazy.
Yeah, we barely run a 7-man rotation, let alone. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, those are all awesome storylines. That's crazy too.
It's wild. I doubt I'll ever see it again. So it's the first for everything, but this might be the last.
Shout out Illinois State Barstool then for that storyline of the week.
Yeah, I would shout out their app, but I don't know it, to be honest. So
we might have to pin it down below.
So the Barstool Birds, shout out.
But Hicks, appreciate you as always. I thought there was phenomenal insight in this. Hopefully someone listening will gain some value. They made it this far. Thank you. Any final words anyone wants to get out there?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having you on. It was very beneficial, very informative.
Yeah, Tyler, you were great.
Thanks for having me, fellas. Great. You guys, I think this is a cool idea. It's awesome that you guys are longtime boys and getting to do this from afar, really. That's awesome, and appreciate you getting up early here.
No worries.
The first guest. It's an honor I don't deserve, but I'm
we're honored to have you. But yeah, I thought this was a great episode. Appreciate anyone who listened this far, and as always, PPP out.
Peace.